Hello, everyone. Uh, this is your facilitator for SBL, Sir Abdul Basit. And in the last class, we just read few of the topics, right? That what are we going to draft in those? What our plan is that we have to cover the theoretical aspects, and then we'll be doing directly the past papers of the covered aspects, right? We'll be doing directly the past papers of the covered aspects, right? So that you'll be able to draft. Just like in this case, you have read Pestle, you have read Potter, and you have read the scenario, so that you could draft it like yourself, right? And after that, our two past papers would have been covered. After that, our two past papers would have been covered, right? So it's an amazing opportunity to learn the drafting with all that, right? And once we have covered many past papers, we'll directly move on to the skills class, so that we'll be learning how to draft with those skills. Probably after 3 to 4 more past papers, I'll be giving you skill classes, and then we'll be moving on to the past papers also. Perfect. So just a review that Ling, you were the management consultant. You had one role, right? There was no changing roles in WZZ. And Ling is your client. Basically, they have provided you some data. They want you to analyze the macro environmental factors affecting the Z-land light bulb industry, right? You are present in I guess Y-land, and then you have to perform the macro environmental factor of Z-land. Skills are analytical skills. Analytical skills means to analyze, right? Means to analyze. Then we have attractiveness of Z-land light bulb industry within framework. Examiner won't be using the framework, right? So that means you can use either the framework or you can draft by yourself, but using a model gives you a brief review. Using a model gives you a brief review of appropriate headings being drafted, right? Then there was a strategic alliance being tested. Like if we entered into the market, then we can have strategic alliance with Flick, right? Because there was an American company entered into the market, and since American company has entered into the market, the prices went down. The competitors gave them tough competition, right? So that means if Ling got internal entry in the market, so that could be an issue. Forming an alliance could reduce that, right? We will be drafting this also. Then agency relationship and watching businesses note, right? Watching businesses were the highlighted the issue that Flick is in basically having interior some unethical stances they have taken, right? And then we received a letter from the Higgs investment, to which we sold our investment, right? Manlal sold his investment to acquire Flick. So Higgs investment want to avoid the misinformed outsider and just focus on your earnings. And then we need to achieve the performance excellence. So that we need to move on to the Bellrich model and how we can do that, right? So in last class, I told you that there's going to be one summary. In last class, I told you that there's going to be one question that's from general, and there's one or two questions where the very less data will be available, and the others could be connected through exhibits, right? We did number of exhibits. We read many things. I hope you guys have reviewed these exhibits, so that now we can draft, right? And after the drafting, I'll give you my short notes, and I'll give you my the examiner scheme marking scheme of these questions, right? I'll give you the short notes and examiner marking schemes of these questions, right? So I hope you guys have reviewed these exhibits, so that we can move on to the first requirement of ours, right? If not, so I'll request you to just pause the class and go on to read the exhibits, right? So the first question, analysis of the macro environmental factor, right? You have to draft a section of a consultancy report. The format is you have to draft a section of a consultancy report, right? So you have to draft that. For the directors of Ling to include the following: an analysis of the macro environmental factors affecting the Z-land light bulb industry. Ling might enter this industry directly by setting up a distribution company. So now they by making a strategic alliance. You are going to enter by using the distribution company or by acquisition of Flick, right? So you have to focus on that. So here we have question named Ling. We are going to attempt the part 1A, right? We are going to attempt the part 1A, and the format used here, you should be remembering the things, the planner we made in the last class, right? The planner we made in the last class. Yeah. So let's just draft this. We were going to draft sections of a report, right? We are going to draft sections of a report, right? Section of a consultancy report. There's a difference in a report format and section of a consultancy report. Section means an extract, right? It means an extract, nothing serious. It's just an extract, right? It's not a complete report. So you should be thinking, if there's a section of a report, the format is going to be changed, right? If there's a section of a report, the format is going to be changed. So now, part A. So we're going to be discussed here that the first part of this report uses, we're going to be telling them that which format, which framework we are going to use. So the first part of this report uses the pastel framework, right? The first part of this report uses the pastel framework as a basis for analyzing the macro environmental factors, as a basis for analyzing the macro environmental factors affecting light bulb industry. Affecting light bulb industry. Now just look into this. Now just look into this. So what they have done, that we have made an introductory para, right? We have made an introductory para. Now what this para tells us, it's a professional start, right? It's a professional start. So this will give you some of the marks because you have started like a professional. You do not have to write directly that the pastel, political, economical, social, logical, not like that, right? You have to focus on how to start and how to end in a professional manner. You have to focus on that, right? So we started that the first part of this report uses the pastel framework as a basis of analyzing, and I am discussing the parts, right? I am discussing the parts. Why? Because see, here's 1A is pastel and 1B is Porter-5 forces, and format to be used is a single one here. We don't have the format separate for pastel and for quarter 5 forces. So we'll be using section of our report as a main heading. We'll be using section of our report as a main heading, and then we'll be making a part A pestle, part B porter, right? So I hope you guys are clear till now. Further, I wanted to add on the line, try to be professional in your introductory and conclusion para. These are the main professional marks you get, right? So the relevance of these factors depends on how Ling enters the market, depends on how Ling enters the market, right? It was said that how the Ling is going to enter the market, it's either by acquisition or by opening a distribution house, right? Either making a distribution house or by acquiring flick, right? So the relevance of these factors is dependent on all these circumstances, right? All these circumstances. So we made a good introductory para here. And now the simple thing we are going to make is this. Right? Political factors, social factors, economic factors, legal factors, all that, right? So now the proper pest. So what were the points we're going to be using? Now think of it. What are going to be the points we're going to be using in political aspect? What are the points, right? We made some highlights. In the political aspect, what you are going to draft, right? So in political, we read many things, right? Cheaper, it's ecological. Uh, nationalist movement, you could discuss that, right? Nationalist movement, you could discuss that. Country is in recession, so it's ecological issues, right? Another important thing here was considering the imposition of import taxes, right? We are currently considering the imposition of import taxes. So if government is going to introduce import taxes, it's gonna hinder our performance. It's a threat to our Link's performance, because Ling is going to make production capacity in Thailand, and then they are going to import these. Zland is going to import these from the Thailand, so obviously there's gonna be import taxes, right? It's gonna be import taxes, so it's a very good political aspect here. So this tells that how carefully you have read the case. So you exactly remember that these points were discussed, right? So therefore, reading carefully is very important, huh? This in this professional manner, reading carefully is very important. Right? So now the government is considering the imposition of import taxes. The government is considering the imposition of import taxes. Now, what's that? This would be a threat for Ling if it opens a distribution company in Zland in Z-land, whereas manufacturing would be in Y-land, right? Now the manufactured items will be prepared in Y-land, and then Z-land is gonna be import them. So if Ling is in Z-land, so if it is importing from Y-land, it's gonna have a major impact. It's gonna have a major impact, right? Another factor which we could discuss here. Now see, they have given you a two aspects here. They have given you the two aspects here, that if you enter, they have given you a two aspects here, that if you enter in the market by acquisition, it's a threat. But if you enter by making a manufacturing facility in Z-land, so because of the import taxes, the imports gonna be fall, right? So because of the import taxes, the imports gonna be fall. So those who are manufacturing the light bulb in Z-land, they're gonna be benefit. They're gonna have the benefit of it, right? So now draft this. This is how you're gonna need the para, approx 3 to 4 lines para, right? Approx 3 to 4 lines para you need to make. This is how you're gonna be learning the drafting here. This is how you're gonna be learning the drafting here, right? So now we're gonna be writing that it presents, it provides an opportunity for Ling entering through acquisition, right? It provides an opportunity for Ling entering through acquisition, as it would have manufacturing facilities in Z-land, and because of import taxes, the in-house production would face demand. It would face demand, right? It would face demand, as imports will fall. Because of import taxes, imports gonna be fall here. Right? So the demand is gonna be increased. I would add increase here, right? And similarly, I would add the Z-land government. It would be appropriate to write the Z-land government. So now we have made a two good paras of 1.5, 1.5 for 2 marks, right? So this is how, see, SBL is just like you need to draft. You have got points, draft, write. The much you write, the much you get. But think of the time, how much you have, right? Think of the time. In my initial past papers, I'll be drafting more and more questions with you. In my initial past papers, I'll be drafting more and more questions with you, just to help you, just to make you easy, just to provide you a good thing, right? Just to provide you a good points list. In the later past papers, we'll be writing appropriate to the exam, that how much we're going to be writing in the exam, right? So think of the marks you have for this question, and it was around 8 marks, right? It was around 8 marks. We're going to be considering analytical marks in it also. So it's 8 marks. So approximately 5 to 6 points we're going to be making. And one of the important factor that we have got here is the analytical skill we use here. Now, what's the analytical skill you guys use here? Just think of it. What's the analytical skills you guys use here? Just think of it. That you guys analyzed that imports gonna be falling imports gonna be falling. So that means the in-house demand is going to be high. So if Ling acquired Flick, then the political change would be a good indicator for it. So this is the analysis you did, right? So this is the analysis that if you are entering as an distribution company, you need to import from your originated country, and that's gonna cost you import taxes. But if you made a manufacturing facility in house in Zland, so it's gonna help you in raising the demand because the imports would fall. So it's analysis, right? So it's analysis. I hope you got my point, guys. I hope you got my point, guys. Right? So political. Then we have economic. Right? Think of the analysis skill as well. Then we have economic. Right? Political, and then we have economic here. So what's economic, huh? So what's economic? The recession and the disposable income, the lines that were recession, the disposable income has fallen, right? But think like an analyst that whether the disposable income fall would impact the light bulb industry. Like if your incomes get fall, or if you feel recession, whether you guys stop buying the light bulb. So this economic downturn is not gonna having the major impact on light bulb. So this economic downturn is not going to have the major impact on light bulb for sure, right? Light bulb for sure. So now, although Zland is in recession and consumer disposable income is falling, right? It's falling. It seems unlikely that a low cost commodity product like light bulbs will be affected, right? It's common sense. You're not gonna stop buying light bulbs, right, in recession. So it's not gonna be having a greatly impacted, right? It's not gonna be having the greatly impacted, right? So this industry would not be impacted. This industry would not be impacted by changing economic prosperity. So this is also an analysis that this won't be impacted. This industry won't be impacted, right? What could be the other point you guys can make here? The customer in recession might switch off lights, right? This could be another point. The customer in recession might switch off lights, but obviously that's not going to be a permanent resolvence of this economic recession, right? That cannot impact a great that cannot be concluded as a great downturn of the recession, right? The customers would switch off light bulbs, right? The customer would switch off light bulbs for saving, which might increase lifespan of bulb, right? However, it's not a major impact on industry or demand, right? The increase in lifespan is not going to have a major impact, right? The increase in lifespan is not going to having a major impact, right? The other element of pastel is social. The other element of pastel is social. So now, what were social points you get? What were the social points you guys got, right? The nationalist movement could be a social point, right? Keep jobs within the country, right? Imported goods can be boycotted. Imported goods could have been boycotted, right? So if the imported goods can be boycotted, you could set out your manufacturing facility in Z land to avoid imported goods restriction on you. So the social movement is just like they want their country to prosper. There's a nationalist movement going on there, right? So they want socialist movement being working. So they need to keep the things in house. So you could connect this thing to Ling's case, that if Ling bought Flick and made an in-house manufacturing facility, which Flicks have, so this type of nationalist movement is not going to impact Ling. But if Ling made a distribution house, this is surely going to impact, because the imports could be restricted, right? The imports could be restricted, right? So we could write here that there is growing nationalist movement that there is growing nationalist movement in Z land who are keen to keep jobs, right? Keen to keep jobs within the country. They discussed that, right? And also, they are keen to keep jobs within the country. Also, boycott against imported goods. Boycott against imported goods. Could be made, right? Could be made. Again, it's unlikely that light bulb industry would face such backlash, right? It's unlikely that this industry would face such kind of a backlash, right? It's unlikely that this industry could face such kind of a backlash. Although we could draft this in another para, that although this can be avoided by acquiring Flick and making in-house facilities in Z land. So you made good points for social as well. So you made good points for social as well. Now, Political done, economic done, social done. Now technical. Right now technical. What's technical? What's technical here? So in this case, the technical could be the moving from halogen bulbs to LED bulbs, light emitting diode bulbs. This is a technological innovation, na? which have which have provided benefit to Ling. Ling made this change in Thailand, and therefore they got very successful, right? Because the halogen bulbs impact the greener environment very well. But if you are moving to LEDs, just like Ling did, so it's a technological innovation. So you could discuss that, and this could be further innovated by making proper research teams and all that. So you could write this that Ling has so far that Ling has so far benefited from technological innovations which have put it ahead of competitors, right? Which have put it ahead of competitors, right? This have put it ahead of competitors, right? Who chose halogen bulbs? So you move on to LEDs, whereas your competitors chose halogen bulbs, and you get ahead of them, right? And you get ahead of them. However, now how to conclude this line? However, Ling needs to focus on continuous Ling needs to focus on continuous development, right? Ling needs to focus on continuous development in lighting technology to avoid losing its competitive advantage, right? So Ling needs to avoid losing its competitive advantage, right? Ling needs to avoid losing its competitive advantage by focusing on lighting technology more, the continuous development, making research teams. You could write that, right? You could make a research team for that and focusing on innovations. Several companies I have been worked had research and development department. So they focus on innovations, right? They focus of innovations. Now, the next and extra head in pastel was environmental, right? We could discuss the ecological issues here. We could discuss the ecological issues here, right? Zland is, there was a point written in the question that Zland is increasingly aware, getting aware of, Zland is increasingly getting aware of the energy issues, right? So it's an environmental observation. You guys can write that. Consumers as well as businesses in Zland, right? Consumers as well as businesses in Zland are increasingly aware of energy issues, right? They are increasingly aware of energy issues. This is one of the reason. You could write that one of the reason could be energy price hikes, right? One of the reason here could be energy prices hikes, right? energy bulbs offered by Ling, energy bulbs offered by Ling are greener and more efficient, right? Are greener and more efficient than halogen bulbs, In this case, customers would move quickly. That means the customer is gonna switch quickly because you are giving them energy saving and they are conserves. They are very conservative regarding the energy. So you guys are giving them an energy saving. So they are surely gonna be moving to your product, right? Move quickly to LED bulbs to reduce their running cost and boost their environmental credentials, right? And they can boost their environmental credentials. Got that? So they can boost their environmental credentials, right? And the last point we're gonna be making here is legal. In the last point we're gonna be making here is legal, right? Is legal. Now, legal, I guess we got only one point of legal, which I remember, that they made a law on it, right? I read it somewhere that they made the law and the legislation was passed, right? Hmm. This kind of legal, right? They decided to turn off lights from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., right? The government want citizens to make save energy. Yeah. So in we could use these points, right? 11 to 5, and then they want the country to be prosper peacefully and legally. So we could write these, right? And they are asking the persons to save energy. So LED is gonna be making them energy. They must introduce their legislations just like that, right? So that if the people is focusing on saving energy, they could move on to LEDs, right? The efficient lighting legislation, the efficient lighting legislation is becoming a law in Zland, right? As government encourages people to save energy, right? Which brings an opportunity for Ling to enter the market with LED bulbs. So this is an opportunity, right? So this is an opportunity. So till now, we have covered the A part, and we have made, I guess, we have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points, right? Although we discussed that we're gonna be making 5, 6 points, right? Although we discussed that we're gonna be making 5, 6 points, but since these are the initial past papers, I want you guys to draft more and more rather than focusing on time, right? We'll be focusing on time in next month, but till now we need to collect data and draft more and more. So therefore, I've made you draft the major more points, right? Approx 9 points we drafted. Now, one of the student has asked us, sir, whether we need to conclude this part. See, if there are different parts, I'll recommend you to make one conclusion, right? If there are different parts, I'll recommend you guys to make one conclusion, right? No more, one conclusion of both parts rather than giving two conclusions. Because it takes what count, it takes your time and all that, right? So if there are different parts, just give one intro and one conclusion, right? Yeah. But here, see, we gave an intro. Here, see, we gave an intro, the first part of this report. So now we need to give an intro of the other part, right? We need to give an intro. Either we could have started that this report uses special framework and Potter 5 forces. So both things in our hand, right? Since we have used the first part, so we're gonna be give an intro of the second part as well. Although we're gonna be concluding these both parts together. So the second part of this report, the second part of this report analyzes the attractiveness of the light bulb industry right? The second part of this report analyzes the attractiveness of the light bulb industry in Zland using Porter 5 forces. Now, this is a very good question which tests Pastel and Porter. So these two great models have been learned, right? Now, you must know how to draft on Pastel. So this is why I taught you Pastel first. So now, here we're gonna give giving headings, and since it was a greater marks question, right? Bargaining power of customers. So we're gonna be giving more points to this, right? How much marks and what are the skills? Just remember, you know the format. So the marks is 17 marks. 12 to 15 are the official points. So we're gonna be making around 20 points to this, right? We're gonna be making around 20 points to this, right? And similarly, 15 and 2 marks. And the skills are evaluation. In evaluation, what you guys do, you guys consider both factors. In analysis, you knew what you need to do. In analysis, usually calculation is also done, although the calculation is not available here. So we just analyze the scenario. But in evaluation, you need to evaluate. In evaluation, you need to evaluate the positives and the negatives, the pros and the cons, right? In evaluation, you need to evaluate the pros and the cons, right? So Just think of it. So just think of it. In evaluation, the pros and cons needs to be discussed, right? So let's move on to this. Bargaining power of customer. So just look into this. Bargaining power of customer. What were the major customers? They discussed here, right? It was discussed here that the major customers were, I guess, supermarkets, yeah, 50%, and home improvement stores and electrical chains, right? And we were not important for them. See, here it is written light bulb sales were one of the products which contributed 0.1% of the major supermarkets revenue. So our sales are there 0.1%. So they're not gonna be giving us much attention, right? They're not gonna be listening us much attention, right? So we're gonna be writing these things that we are not that much important customers to them, right? We are not that much important customers to them. However, since we have uh, undifferentiated product, right? We have undifferentiated product, right? So customers can get this product anywhere. Customers can there's a low switching cost. Like if they are going to switch from our market to other, so we're going to be discussing these points, right? We have got many points. Just think we can think of it and write, right? So the major, yeah. So the main customers of the industry's product are supermarket. So this is how you need to start, right? Our supermarket. Now you need to consider the evaluation. Sometimes you're gonna say the bargaining power of customer is high, but on some aspects might be our bargaining power can be high. So you need to discuss, right? Both pros and cons. This is evaluation. So the main customers of this industry product are supermarket, home improvement supermarkets, home improvement stores, home improvement stores and electrical chains. And electrical chains, right? These customers buy approx 90% of products, 90% of, I'll say, our product, right? 50 plus 30 plus 10. So it's 90% of our product, right? 90% of our product. So they could demand, now here come the skill, they could demand favorable prices. So you said here that since they buy 90% of your product portfolio, since they buy 90% of your product portfolio, they could demand favorable prices, right? They could demand favorable prices. So it's a very good point, right? It's a very good point, right? One thing to be noted that light bulb sales were 0.1% sales of supermarkets revenue, right? of supermarkets revenue, as light bulb are much less important, right? As light bulb are much less important for supermarkets than food and drinks. So it's common sense that obviously light bulbs are not that much important in comparison with food and drinks, right? In comparison with food and drinks, right? So since it's not that much important commodity product for a customer, right? It includes small fraction, right? It's included in small fraction of customers' total cost that customer would bargain with light bulb supplier. Now see here, you made a proper evaluation. Here you made a proper evaluation that here you concluded that we have less power. But then this is the evaluation skill, that we have less power. But since we are dealing in that product which is not important for that much for the customer, which is not that much important for the customer, so therefore they are unlikely bargain for a bulk's price, right? They're surely gonna be bargaining for the food, drinks, and all the ration they need. But they are not gonna go bargain for light bulb because it's very less important product for them or their total fraction. So it's very less, right? So it's very less, right? So this is evaluation. On one page, you are saying them, and after them, you are against them, right? Similarly, we'll again say you could think and write many things. Customers' bargaining power is strengthened, right? Is strengthened as the product is undifferentiated, right? Product is undifferentiated. So customers' bargaining power is strengthened, right? As the product is undifferentiated. And customer would have low switching cost, right? Customers gonna be having low switching cost with themselves in that, right? It's practically impossible that their own bulbs to save cost, which limits their power. Now see, it's an evaluation skill, right? It's an evaluation skill. You here said that the bargaining power of is strengthened, right? You here said that the bargaining power of customer is strengthened because low commodity product and they do not have any I'll say undifferentiation. But then you again evaluated it in a best manner that it is impossible that if the customer is facing a challenging issue of light bulb price hikes, So it's impossible he gonna be going home and making his own. So if he cannot do that, it will limit his power. See, if there is an inflation, so I would not eat the outside food, right? If there is inflation, so I would not eat the outside food, that's for sure, because inflation is there and we do not earn that much. But I gonna be cooking my own food in my house, so this strengthens my power that I do not need restaurants, all that, right? But in bulbs category, if the bulb prices are high, you are not going to go home and make your own bulb. So this limits your power here. So this limits your power. This is evaluation, guys. This is evaluation. This is the best point of evaluation so far we have got, right? This is the best point of evaluation we have got, right? So bargaining power of customer, we got good point. Now let's move on to bargaining power of supplier. Now let's move on to bargaining power of supplier. Right? So here are the supplier things. I've told you the customer, the employees can be your supplier, the metal ones can be your supplier, the glass ones can be your supplier, right? And for supplier, we know that we are not that much important also, right? For suppose an omni metal, that light bulb manufacturer is taking less than 0.1% of its total production, so they not gonna be giving us that much discount, right? Similarly, 90% of glass is produced by 3 companies, and bulb manufacturers are not that important customer for them also, right? For them also. So you could be saying that in these cases, bargaining power of supply, this is limited. The supplier power is limited. So this is evaluation, right? Pros and cons. Pros and cons. Yeah. A supplier group is more powerful. A supplier group is more powerful if it is dominated by a few companies, right? If it is dominated by a few companies, and is more concentrated, then the industry it sells to, right? A supplier group is more powerful if it is dominated by a few companies, obviously, right? And is more concentrated than an industry it sells to, right? So this is how you start. Now, in the case of Zland, in case of 90% of glass production, we read that, right? 3 companies, huh? 90% of glass by 3 companies, right, is accounted for by 3 companies, and metal production is in hands of one large company, and is in hands of one large company. So you introduced the suppliers here, right? So you introduce the suppliers here, right? The supplier seems to be larger. The suppliers seem to be larger than their customers, and also customer and also customer constitutes and also customer of light bulb less fraction of their revenue, constitutes less fraction of their revenue. Customer of light bulb constitutes less fraction of their revenue, strengthens power of supplier, power of supplier. The supplier power is again strengthened no substitute of light bulb. It's common, huh? Light bulbs cannot be substituted. The glass, it cannot be substituted by the glass and metal, right? If light bulb constitutes glass and metal, it is for sure they'll be constituting it, right? There's not going to be light bulb coming and it will be of paper. It will be of a wood, right? So light bulb constitutes glass and paper, and this is for in the near future. It seems like that, right? So since there's no substitute of the glass and metal, so it's for sure strengthening power of supplier, right? Again, the relative unimportance of light bulb segment, right? The relative unimportance of light bulb segment seems is evident. The great word would be is evident as the relative unimportance of light bulb segment is evident as manufacturers use less than of countries glass, 0.5% of countries and less than 0.1% of its metal production, right? Less than 0.1% of its metal production. So this unimportance strengthens power of supplier because you are not important for your supplier, right? Right? Lastly, what we could write here. It's unlikely that suppliers, it's unlikely that suppliers would be making their own light bulbs by going for forward integration, right? By going for forward integration, which limits their power. Which limits their power, right? So here's the evaluation again, that you initially you said that they're gonna be having more power, and initially you said that they're gonna be having more power, but then you said that the power is limited. Then you said the power is limited, right? Yeah. So we drafted bargaining power of customer, bargaining power of supplier with more than required points, obviously. And now we have the third third force of Porter, the third force of Porter, and that's threat to new entrants, right? And that's threats of new entrants, right? And that's threat of new. See, Ling is currently entering in a market in Zland market, right? So the barriers and potential reaction yeah, sorry, it went on updation. So barriers and potential reaction from market needs to be evaluated, right? It needs to be evaluated. Now, we could say that there were five large companies, right? The five large dominant companies the five large dominant companies in the industry should be enjoying economies of scale, because they are the only five, right? Economies of scale. Or any potential entrant, right? Any potential entrant to come up with large scale production, right? To come up with large scale production which itself carries a high risk of failure, which itself carries a high risk of failure, right? Which itself carries a high risk of failure. So the 5 large dominant companies, right, in the industry should be enjoying economies of scale. But if you're coming into those 5 large companies, you must be coming with some high investment, right? Else, and itself, it's a risk of failure because of that American company that came, right? American company that came, right? It seems lesser issue for Ling as it's currently leading market, as it seems lesser issue for Ling as it's currently leading market in Z-land. So obviously if Ling's gonna come, it must be giving some tough competition to all the entrants, right? Obviously. Similarly, another point we could say that the manufacturing of high capital investment it requires high capital investment into production plants, into production plants, again, it's a lesser issue. It's a lesser issue for Ling due to already existing experience of Ling in this market. Because of Ling, it's already in this market, so it's gonna arrange the funds very easily, right? So it's in that market, right? Lastly, in the competition, access to distribution channels such as supermarket would be a difficult measure for new entrant, right? It's gonna be a difficult measure for new entrant. It's gonna be a difficult measure for new entrant, right? It's gonna be a difficult measure for new entrant as new entrant would need to persuade its products so that customer could go for accepting its product, right? So you need to sell your product, you need to give them discounts, you need to persuade your product, right? And similarly, selling would be a difficult step for newcomer. Yeah, it surely be a difficult step for newcomer, right? So we made some more points of threats of new entrants. We made some more points of threats of new entrants, right? Now we can say threat of substitute products. Yeah, another force of Porter was substitute products, right? Another force of Porter was substitute products, right? You need to define substitute product, right? And then its threat. What's the threat of it? You need to define substitute product and then what's the threat of it? So substitute product. So substitute product are products which can perform the same function, right? Which can perform the same function as the product of industry, right? So substitute product is the product which can perform the same. Hardly any substitute can be candles, which is obviously not a permanent solution, right? Which is obviously not a permanent solution for substituting light bulb, right? So it's also made. Now, the last thing is competition or competitive rivalry. Competition or competitive rivalry, right? Or competitive rivalry. See, Zland industry to be Zland industry seems to be equally balanced as all firms seems to be balanced existing firms seems to be well balanced in terms of size, it creates because they may be prone to fight each other. They are not going to be fighting with each other, right? They are not going to be fighting with each other, right? Why? Because they are not going to be fighting with each other, right? Because they may be prone to fight each other because they are well balanced. They have the equal split of market share. So why are they going to be fighting? So why are they going to be fighting? So we can write they might act to new entrants, which they did to American company, which left in 6 months. Which left in 6 months, right? The last point we can say that this industry requires high exit cost. This industry require high exit cost because of investment and the fact that light bulb obvious use or alternate use, right? Light bulb have no obvious alternate use, right? So light bulb have no obvious and alternate use. When exit costs are high, companies prefer to stay in industry, right? When exit costs are high, company prefers to stay in industry rather than just leaving the industry because of the high exit cost. So I hope we have attempted a very good manner of quarter five forces. If we can look into it, 1, 2, 3 points, right? Then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So approx 15 points we have made, right? Approx 15 points we have made, although we discussed 12 to 15 points, right? So till now we have attempted of 25 marks, half of the marks of this question, and we have learned how to draft on pestle and porter, right? We have learned how to draft on pestle and porter. Whenever you get porter, you will think of the exit cost, you will think of the bargaining powers and the switching cost and all that, right? The porter thinks the same. Similarly, pestle, you know what to write in political, you know what to write in ecological, you know what to write in economical. So these are the things, right? And we'll get the same type of requirements in many questions. We have too many questions to attempt, right? We have too many questions to attempt. So if there are any questions, you guys can text me on WhatsApp, or if you're taking live class, you can use the Zoom chat box. We'll be doing the next questions also. They are of lesser marks, so would take less time, but we'll be trying to solve this complete past paper today, right? So this is our motto that after doing an orientation, we did one past paper and now we are going to complete the second one also. And similarly, the third and fourth one we'll be doing in the upcoming classes. If there are any questions, you guys can ask, else we can move on to the next requirement. Yeah. So let's just move on to the second question. And that second question is that the finance director of Ling is concerned that no expertise in acquiring foreign companies. So now what the guys have done, they have just advocating a strategic alliance with Flick, right? A strategic alliance with Flick. See here, I can't found any format here, right? So that's a good thing. So we do not need to make a format just right. Very rare questions are like that in exam because there's no format. The skills here are commercial acumen. The skills there are commercial acumen, right? That means you should be sounding commercial sense. You should be giving commercial advices, that strategic alliances. You should be giving what are the commercial benefits that Zland or the Ling that has to get from it, right? So it's making commercial sense, sounding like a commercial person, right? So in this type of a question, you need to first explain the strategic alliance and how this will be a commercially sound thing for Ling. And we have approx 8 marks here, right? And we have approx 8 marks here. So let's move on to that. Two. And here it is, strategic alliances, right? Here it is, strategic alliances. How you would start? See, they have asked you to sound a commercial person. So the skills are commercial acumen. And see, they have said you that you do not have any experience in foreign acquisition. So you would be saying that acquisitions are not that much successful in every case, right? So thinking of above the acquisition is something you're going to be doing in this question. So see, I'll start like that there are many cases in there are many cases in which acquisition does not found to be successful, or yeah, found to be successful, right? So there are many cases in which acquisitions does not found to be successful, and therefore if these concerns are understandable. You must be thinking the starting point which I am doing in every question. You should concluded that, right? You didn't concluded it. The reason was that there was no conclusion asked, right? So if there is no conclusion asked, you can skip that, right? If there is are understandable, strategic alliances seems to be less risky way of entering the market, right? Strategic alliances seems to be less risky way of entering the market. Now, suggest them what is strategic alliance, tell them what is strategic alliance. It's basically an strategic alliance is where two or more organizations, right? It's two or more organizations share resources and activities to pursue a strategy. To pursue a strategy, right? The strategy, the basis for an alliance, the basis for an alliance between Ling and Flick would be co-specialization, right? Allowing each partner to focus on its capabilities. To focus on its capabilities, right? Ling will be able to use a, now see, it's the commercial acumen here. Ling will be able to use Flick's local knowledge, right? Ling will be able to use Flick's local knowledge and expertise in distribution marketing, and customer support. These are the benefits that's Ling gonna be taking from them, right? And Flick would gain new energy efficient products for its home market, right? The Flick's gonna be benefit from them like this, which would allow Flick to form. So now this sounds like a commercial person, right? This sounds like commercial acumen, right? This sounds like commercial acumen. So it's like that, right? So it's like that. And obviously, the profit of alliance, would be on agreed basis, right? What are the bases they have been agreed? The profit between the on agreed basis, right? Now, this is you have started that what's the strategic alliance. Now strategic alliance could be further elaborated. Now the strategic alliance could be further elaborated by making some different parts of alliances, right? By making some different parts of alliances, such as it could be joint operations. You could discuss that, right? It could be joint operations, or it could be joint venture. You must have studied these things in your SBR exam. That's IFRS 11. Obviously, IFRS are of our no scope in SBL, but obviously we could use the knowledge of it, right? We could use the knowledge of it, right? So now we could say that there are different types of strategic partnership, right? There are different types of strategic partnership, such as joint venture, right? Such as joint venture, in which, what's joint venture? You must know that, in which new organization is created, jointly owned, right? Which, and the parent companies remain independent. Parent companies remain independent. Parent companies remain independent trading companies, right? The parent company remains independent trading companies, right? Parent company remains independent trading companies. Joint venture. Now, concluding comment of this para, that joint venture is more appropriate. Now, sounding companies are entering in new market, right? When companies are entering a new market, joint venture is usually appropriate thing, right? Now, since in all the question, the environment seems to be an important thing, right? We have read complete case and we have attempted many requirements. The thing environment seems to be more important here, right? The environment thing seems to be more important here, right? So now what we gonna do? So now what we gonna do? We simply gonna write alliances rules as an environmental factors, right? We simply gonna write alliances rules as an environmental factor, right? So now how to write that? The form of alliance can be shaped, account, environment, the industry, right? Which affect the industry. Case, considering environment, it's difficult to foresee that how gonna possess, right? How this venture gonna possess growth for investors. Obviously, growth is also important, but obviously, environmental reservation is also important, right? Uh, Lastly, we can say that furthermore, Ling has limited expertise. Ling has limited expertise in acquisition, but it's not evident that Ling have experience of strategic alliances, right? It's not written that Ring have any experience of strategic alliances. Yeah, so it's not written, right? It's not written. Success requires experience in setting up and monitoring and monitoring clear goals, right? Monitoring clear goals, governance, financial arrangements, and other organizational issues. So, short and likely, the examiner would have asked. See, we have discussed strategic alliances, right? We could also discuss licensing, that uh, without acquiring, Ling could give license of its product to Flick. So licensing could also be discussed, right? Licensing could also be discussed and the pros and cons of it. It's a commercial sense, right? That if you are not acquiring, if you are not making a joint venture, you must license your project, just like KFC, McDonald's, and all that done. So it could also be written here. But so far, we have attempted more. Second question is also done. So second question is also done, right? Yeah. Now, third requirement, issues related to letter from watching business, right? Frustrated when anybody gets in the way of most important relationship of shareholders. Higgs investment were concluding them as a misinformed outsider, right? And they want briefing notes. So here we have briefing notes, right, which explain agency relationship between board and Higgs investment and provide advice on demands from watching business. So now here's skepticism, right? Skepticism, you need to be aware, you need to be criticize, you need to criticize the issues. Skepticism means criticism. You are criticizing, you are you cross checking can also be criticism, right? You are cross checking the references. So here the criticism skills are required. Again, the requirement is that briefing notes for Manlal, which explains agency relationship. Briefing notes for Manlal, which explains agency relationship between the board of Ling Company and Higgs Investment, and provide advice on how the investment or how the demand from watching business should be considered, right? How the demand from watching business should be considered, right? What were the demands? What were the demands? Here it is. The letter is here. The two letters I have received, right? Prominent environmental lobbying organization watching business. Its unfortunate record in Z-Land Flick continues to carefully monitored, right? Flick activities has increased since its news of possible takeover by Ling. I'm inclined to dismiss threats from the groups of this type. And that some of the proposed acquisitions, WB is also respected environmental research organization, right? And second letter was from the Higgs investment. They called WB as a misinformed outsider. They want customers, they want Link company to maximizing shareholders' wealth, right? So these are all that. So now the third part is briefing notes. Yeah. So now the third part is briefing notes. Right? And the skills here are skepticism. Skills here are skepticism, right? So here we go. Introduction. This is the format of briefing notes, right? If you guys don't remember the format, don't worry. I have made a list in my book of all the formats, so you'll be looking into it, and that's perfect, right? So now, introduction. We'll be discussing the letters here, that the letters from Higgs investment and watching businesses, right? Higgs investment and watching businesses highlight importance of relationship between Ling and its shareholders. Between Ling and its shareholders, right? Shareholders are arguably they own the company, right? They own the company, and their rights are enforceable under company law, right? Their rights are and so it's the law that you have to satisfy the shareholders, right? Mine agency relationship, and then I'll give them a heading here, right? I'll give them a heading here. They've asked us to determine agency relationship, and along with that, being an agency relationship, they have asked. So the agency relationship, we're gonna be writing definitions of agency and who are agent, who are principal, and all that stuff, right? So let's do that. Yeah. So the directors of Ling are the directors of Ling are employed as agent by the company's shareholders, right? By the company's shareholders who own the company. Who own the company, right? As owners, shareholder have rights to upon comment upon and influence companies' objectives, right? Comment upon and influence companies' objectives. Directors are responsible for managing for managing companies with respect to shareholder views, right? With respect to shareholder views. The main objectives is normally assumed to be maximization of returns, right, to shareholders. Subject to any imposition made by law and society, right? Subject to any imposition made by law and society. Higgs investment now here's the criticism, right? Has correctly reminded Higgs investment has correctly reminded the board of its responsibilities, right? Has correctly reminded the board of its responsibilities, correctly reminded the board of its responsibilities towards shareholder and appears to be supportive for investment in Flick, right? And appears to be supportive for investment in Flick. Now, demands of WB, right? You concluded agency relationship, and that's perfect. You told what is that agency relationship, what are directors for, and what are the views for, and then you say that Higgs investment has correctly reminded. That's the skepticism, that you have been skeptical, and then you have correctly concluded that the Higgs investment had did the right thing, right? Higgs investment. Now, what are the demands of WB? Although Higgs investment have called WB as misinformed outsider. They have called them as misinformed outsider, right? They have called them as misinformed outsider, right? However, WB has some power. They have some power, right? They have political affiliations because of influence in society. They have influence in society, right? It cannot be, it cannot be dismissed easily. I hope you guys got that this cannot be just dismissed as easily as you are thinking. This cannot be just dismissed as easily as you guys are thinking of it, right? As easily as you guys are thinking of it, right? The problem of Flick came to light just a year ago, right? And this may bring more problems in attention. This may bring more problems in attention if careful monitoring of Flick is considered, right? If careful monitoring of Flick is considered, it might bring some more problems, right? WB has advised Ling not to invest in Flick, not to invest in Flick, although this strategy could lead to higher yields, right? This strategy could lead to higher leads, but what to do? They have asked us not to invest, right? WB's significance can be driven through having influence over having influence over legislators, right? Having influence over legislator and wider public in several countries, right? In several countries. So yeah, wider public and in several countries. Several countries. We could further say that politicians support cannot be easily ignored, right? Now you are making board to aware of these assertions they have made, right? Organization. It is a well-known organization and can company and its products, right? Can let people company boycott its products, right? because of high influence. Yeah. Now to end the demands like this, right? Now to end the demands like this, that because of influence, Ling has to claim, Ling has to take claims of WB seriously, right? Although Higgs investment is against focusing on WB's claim, this could lead to several risks. Now, mention some risks, that would be fine. Mention some of the risks, that can be fine, right? Links may be hindered by WB's lobbying, right? May be hindered by WB's lobbying. Also, it may face pressure from and potential environment concerns, right? Potential environmental concerns, right? Similarly, adverse encouragement or any adverse coverage in consumers boycotting Link's product, right? Because they don't want to be associated with the company. They do not want to be associated with the company. Those who are misrepresenting environmental credentials, right? Those who are misrepresenting environmental credentials. Now, the conclusion, that what to do. I guess we have written more than enough here also. So now just to conclude, that what Ling needs to do, that what Ling needs to do. The concerns of WB cannot be ignored, right? The concerns of WB cannot be ignored, right? But all taken into account when investment decision is made, right? When investment decision is made, if Ling invested, it must carefully, it must carefully manage any threats. It must carefully manage any threats to its reputation, right? To its reputation by emphasizing positive positives of Click and Z. Just asked, you have just asked your BOD, you have just asked your BOD to at least give some consideration to WB's demand and consider this part of our investment decision. Consider the negatives and positives of this investment decision, right? So this is how you have evaluated WB's and Higgs investments letter. So this is how you have evaluated WB's and Higgs investments letter. Right? So this is how you have invested WB's and Ling's investment letter. The last question is that, so now the last question here is that 3 slides for presentation to the board of directors that explain Baldrige model. Now here comes the new format, that's slides, right? I'll let you know how the slides are made and the communication. And I've told you in the communication, you should be clear. You should be using right format. And you should be easy to understand, right? No mushkil, no difficult things, right? 4 to 5 points we need to make, but there are 3 slides. So what we are going to do, we are going to make 3 different slides, explains the Baldrige model and how it will be helping us to achieve the corporate success, right? How it's going to be helping us to achieve the corporate success. So it's the last question. We're going to be, after that, we'll be completed our past paper, right? So slide is made like these. These will be given in your paper. Don't worry. These type of shapes will be given in your paper. You'll be solving on exam platform also. We'll be solving things on exam platform also. So don't worry. So slide 1. Right? We'll be heading the Baldrige model of performance excellence. Right? The Baldrige model of performance excellence. Right? So now aims. We'll be making in slides. What you need to do, you need to make shorter one-liners, and then in the supporting notes you need to explain that, right? So they have asked us 3 slides and 3 notes of it. The slides contains the supporting notes, right? The slides contain the supporting notes, right? So what are the aims? It provides a framework, right, of assessing performance. It provides a framework of assessing performance, right? It provides a framework of assessing performance, help organization to achieve excellence, right? Help organizations to achieve excellence, right? So its aim is this. And how does it do this? And how it will do? So it's here. How? Strengths, right? Helping to identify strengths. It highlights areas of improvement. Now, in supporting notes of this slide, this is the one slide that you have made, right? Now, in supporting notes of this slide, what you guys need to do, you need to explain these points which we have made here, right? Now, in supporting notes of this slide, you need to make, now in supporting notes of this slide, you need to make, or you need to highlight the pointers you made here, right? The pointers you made here, right? So now I'll explain this slide here, that the underlying purpose of Bellbridge model is to help organization improve and to achieve performance excellence, right? Organization that have followed Bellbridge have seen improvements, right? Have seen improvements across number of areas, right? Have seen improvement across number of areas, improved results, customer relationship, and more. It includes workforce also, right? This model does not guide how the organization should operate. It's just identifies the values and beliefs of organizations of successful organization. It just identifies beliefs of successful organizations, right? It just identifies beliefs of successful organizations, right? So this is how you explain this slide. This is how you explain this slide. Now, what they want 3 slides, right? So they want 3 slides. So we'll be giving them 3 slides. If they want 3 slides, no problem. No problem. We're gonna be giving them 3 slides. Yeah. So slide 2 would include, in my perspective, criteria. That what's the criteria of Belridge, right? What's the criteria of Belridge? So I'll say 6 key criteria used to drive 7th one. 6 key criteria will be used to drive 7th one. And what's that? It's leadership. Then it's strategy. Then it's measurement, knowledge management, right? The 5th one is workforce, right? And then 7th one, right? And then 7th one is results, right? Criteria. Now in the second slide, the supporting notes would be now in the second slide, supporting notes would be the definitions of it, right? I'm not writing those definitions because I have already drafted this in my book, right? I've already drafted this in my book, right? So I'll just use these definitions. So I'll just use these definitions, right? So these are my supporting notes for this, right? And then I have the third slide, which I have to make. Now I have to think of it that what sort of third slide I need to make here, right? Now I have to think of it here that what sort of third slide right? So slide 3. Now what sort of third slide I have to make? So I'll make criteria evaluation, right? How you are going to evaluate your criteria which we have made above, right? So third slide could be that. That's totally a self thinking. You could think something else, right? You'll say criteria implementation, how to implement that criteria. Now that's the beauty of SBL. You can think whatever you want to think, right? So you can write whatever you want to write. So I'll write here the criteria evaluation. I'll evaluate the criteria on certain levels. I'll evaluate the criteria on certain trends. I'll evaluate the criteria on comparisons, right? I'll evaluate the criteria on comparisons, and I'll do the integrations also. And I'll do the integrations also. So now again, the supporting notes I'm going to make here for this slide. So now again, the supporting notes I'm going to make here for I'll define levels. What are the levels? See, in slides, you need to write less because you'll always get the marks of the slides you have made, right? So you'll always get these marks. So you have to write less here. So I'll just define levels. That what are levels? What is organizations? What is organization's performance level? Right? Then trends are results improving, right? Trends, results are results improving, staying the same, or getting worse, right? I'll do comparisons. Ling's performance being compared with organizations or against other benchmarks, right? Then integration, that's key stakeholders expectations from Ling and integrating those that desired, right? So what we learned today, prox follow that. You need to have a look into the answer, the slides we learned, that how to write on slide, how to use the supporting notes. Usually in slides we write less because already slides are made, and then the supporting notes, so there's not much writing in it, right? Again, I would highlight that I have made the maximum points. Again, I would highlight that I have made the maximum points with yourself, right? I have made the maximum points with yourself. So don't you guys worry that you need to write so much for 50 marks, right? This is the best I have given to you, just to let you know how to draft and just to have a favor of skills and all that, right? Slowly and steadily, we will be moving more to the past papers. We will be going through more to the past papers, and you'll be having a great learning of drafting and skills in it, right? So far, it's all from my side. I hope you guys have enjoyed this session. If yes, send me a feedback of yours, right? You don't need to write the complete answer, as this complete PDF will be shared with you once the course is complete. So you don't need to have a look on it. The book and the lectures have been uploaded to LMS. So you can always access the book, right? The books and the lectures have been uploaded to LMS. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Inshallah, in the next class, we're going to have some more lectures. Similarly, once the advanced information is released, we will having a look on it also, right? So let's just do this. It's all from my side for today. Take care. Allah Hafiz.